Alright, my opponent went for the London system this game. For you too, Lemus Christian, and I'm sad to hear that. Yeah, here, Queen b6 is also a very interesting line here. Knight c6 is much more common, but I've investigated Queen b6 as well. And it's not a bad move. It's a completely acceptable move, putting pressure on b2. This is what they do next move anyways, going Queen b6. Here, Bishop d3 is not the most common move at all. The most common move is in fact Knight d2, so Queen b6 can comfortably be met with Queen b3. And now Black doesn't have the typical idea of going c4, Queen c2, Bishop f5. As here Queen takes f5, Queen takes b2, no longer traps the Rook as in some other variations, and the Rook can now move freely. We will have a look at what this means if my opponent was to play Queen b3 in this position. Then I would have c4, forcing Queen takes b6, pawn takes b6, and getting a pretty good endgame, because next Black will push b5, b4, and White will be left with an inferior pawn structure. On another common move, Knight f3, Black utilizes the same idea, Queen b6, Queen b3, can now be met with c4, Queen c2 is met with Bishop f5. This is what we have been talking about. White needs to spend a tempi moving the Queen, but if White is greedy and takes an f5, this will be losing right away, because then Black takes on b2, and the Rook on a1 is simply trapped. My Queen c2 is passive for sure. I go on c4 with the same idea. After Bishop e2, I go Bishop f5, and here I have a pretty decent advantage in development. I went e6 in order to develop my dark squared bishop. Got it out. And here the computer mentions a move I perhaps should have played, Knight h5. This move potentially wins the bishop pair, but the computer also finds Bishop g5, and now it's not a guarantee that the bishop pair is won. Is f6 possible? I don't think, g5 isn't really possible due to Knight takes g5, so then Black might not be winning the bishop pair right away, but this is still a decent position. However, in that case, Knight h5 is not a very good move at that point. Here I played Rook ac8, but again had Knight h5. What happens after Bishop g5 now is my question. Now I am able to go g5 as Bishop takes h5 is no longer with check. I see. As Knight takes g5, Pawn takes g5, Bishop takes h5. When the King was on e8, this was with check, and Black had to spend the tempi on the King. But now Black can simply take on h4 and be a piece up. Right, here I went Rook d8. I went h6 to give my King a flight square. To give my King and my Bishop a flight square as well. So now every time Knight h4 will be met with Bishop h7. My opponent took on c6, and here I decided to take with a pawn, as the b2 pawn is now a backwards pawn, which is why the computer's instinct is to move it right away, but it still seems as if Black should have a move here to get the initiative. And Knight e5, here I fought a strike against the center with c5, and Bishop d1, I took on d4, thought this would be a favorable change of the structure for me. He takes d. I went Rook b8, hoping to put some pressure on the backwards pawn on b2, forcing my opponent to go b3. Then my idea was simply to go Rook bc8. I go back and claiming that b3 is a potential weakness. And now after Rook b8, my opponent went Bishop takes h6. This is something I want to talk about here. He went for a rather unjustified attack, sacrificing a bishop for 2 pawns. It's very important to maintain a calm state when your opponent does this, and still be objective and try to defend the attack off in the best way possible. I went Knight h7 with the idea of Bishop g5 here. Knight d7 is perhaps even better trading off the knight on e5, as Bishop h5 is met with Knight takes e5, and it seems as if white doesn't have nearly enough pieces around black's king to cause any serious problems, compensating for the loss of a piece. And my opponent took an f7, giving up another piece in the hopes of checkmating my king. But here I was calm. I realized my opponent had nothing special, and I could just take an f7. Bishop h5 is met with king g8, and here after g4, hoping to kick my bishop away, which even after bishop d3, the move g4 is a bit weakening, so it's just a bad idea simply, I believe. But I also had bishop g5 trapping my opponent's queen. And after pawn takes f5, my opponent realized what he had done, and he resigned.